We're live. Woohoo!
Hey.
There we go. And we we got.
That was so underwhelming.
I haven't heard that in 2 months.
It's subtle. It's subtle today because our guest today is very subtly cunning and brilliant and smart and good at what he does. But again, and this is kind of how I was going to tee you up. Actually, I was going to say that. So our guest today is Ronnie Young. I've known Ronnie for a bunch of years now, and he most recently has been doing all of the live sound for Periphery. He's worked with a ton of bands. I'll let him sort of tell you who else he has worked with over the years, but he's an excellent live sound guy, an excellent studio sound guy, great at mixing, great at everything technical and audio and creative in the sound world. I guess that's how I would describe it. But what's great also, leading to going back to that first point about Ronnie, is that he is subtle. Like, he's in the room, but he knows his role. He's self-aware. He knows his space. He knows when to step in, when to step back. He is a very particular person, if I could say so, and I mean that in a good way. He knows what he likes, and he knows what he doesn't like. I think that he lives by a code. Now, that code has never actually been communicated to me by Ronnie, but again, when you live with somebody on a tour bus for, months at a time, or at months when you add it all up, you start to really pick up on people's habits, on people's different tendencies, routines, things like that. And I really think that Ronnie does live by a code, and it's a great one for that because it is always presented in a very professional way. In a very clean way. That's a word I like to use to describe Ronnie. Very clean and well put together. Yes,
I'll take that.
There you go. But look, I mean, this intro is to sort of give people an understanding of sort of how you are, and it is a positive sense of reserve and a positive code that I think you live by. And those are the kinds of things that I want to talk with you about today, specifically in relation to the state of the world, and with you really having, your schedule and what is normal for you most of the year after year, completely get flipped on its head. So, that's kind of where it is, but I'll stop there and I guess let me tee this up for you. So,
all right.
Do you think there's any validity to this code idea that I'm peddling to everybody right now?
I've never thought about it, but when I do think about it, I can see why you would feel that way, and I guess I kind of do. But it's my only rule on the road is just don't be a dick. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
Am I allowed to swear on this podcast? Don't be a fucking dick. You've got to share the space, and it's really quite a small space. And so you have to be able to read a room, and I feel like I'm pretty good at reading rooms, and listening to rooms, of course, but and also on the cleanliness thing, thanks, because I do try to be quite clean. But yeah, I guess the code is it's quite broad, but just don't be a dick and learn how to read the room. They're the only two things I really try to take onto it.
Okay.
Ronnie, being able to read the room, is that something that has just been natural for you, or is that actually a skill that you've had to become aware of and then over time cultivate?
I think I developed it while I was teaching, so I'm a qualified teacher. And before I started touring full time, that's what I was doing. So, sensing trouble among the teens and figuring out moods and how people are reacting to things and it's quite an integral part of being a teacher, I think. And so, being able to just go on a tour bus and there's a meeting happening, all right, make myself scarce kind of thing. I don't think it's really difficult, but I do think there are people who, Matt, I'm sure you've worked with a few, who have trouble with that. And it gets hairy. Thankfully, I actually haven't had that many hairy situations on the road, but there's definitely been tension among other people, and at that point, I'm out the door.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're really good at sensing that. And, you know, I hope you have this perception as well. I don't typically think that within the Periphery camp there's ever any crazy tension. There's certainly business discussions and things that are more serious throughout the day, but never, I don't think, in the form of drama between us, at least most of the time. And when there has been, it's been pretty, I think, exceptional in that sense, you know. And even then, I mean, you or anybody else we're with exercises sort of that discretion and that caution that's needed in those moments when people are kind of having deeper discussions. But I think that's sort of part of what I'm talking about. I think the other thing that I really have noticed about you based on our interactions as well as your interactions with other that I think falls into this code is, you know, it's do unto others as you want people to do back to you, for sure. And I say this in the most respectful way because I think this is a very good trait, is you are sensitive like I am. I think they're, you know, like we're both strong, big guys, right? We are good at what no, seriously, I mean,
I know what you mean.
And if somebody saw you and me walking down the street together, we're both like the same height, right? Yeah. We're both 6'3", 6'4". I don't think someone would look at you necessarily with your hands tattooed and tattoos all over your body and say, oh, there's a really sensitive guy. But again, I say that in a good way because I think that sensitivity allows you to be empathetic, allows you to love animals and understand, and understand people. And I think, again, based on my interactions with you, that's why you have probably been pretty successful in navigating the state of your world over the past couple months, because you are able to sort of look around you, assess the situation, and figure out how, I'm guessing, but maybe you can respond, how you can be the best for yourself and therefore the best for others, which is definitely a theme that we've been discussing in these episodes as of late. Yeah.
Well, I mean, handling the, pandemic is so... I've had 3 takeaways this week. I don't know what's happened. I can't remember the last time I did that. But, today I went for a run and I felt like I was going to die. So I'm starting to turn it around. But it's up and down. And the main thing is, I've got 2 housemates. So it's sort of like being on tour where you have to try not to let your bad moods affect anybody else, and you have to try not to let anybody else's bad mood affect you, which, on the sensitivity thing can be quite difficult, especially when you've got the added pressure of I don't think I'm going to go back on tour until 2021 at this point, although Plini has some mainland Europe stuff in October and live music started in Germany the other day, but I don't know how that's going to go. So there's a very slim chance that I might have some shows in October, but adjusting to...
That's still a long time.
Plus, that's a long time. Right. It's a really long time. And the UK government furlough scheme... Joe, are you based in the UK?
Yeah, I live in Bristol. Yeah.
So the furlough scheme has been all right. I personally don't really have any complaints about it so far. Oh, actually, I have one gripe, but whatever. But adjusting from that lifestyle of I should have, since I got home from our run in February, I was out with Carl Baum. We did 4 shows that got cut off. I almost got stuck in the Czech Republic. And then I flew home. I should have been out with Chon, and I should have been out with Stray from the Path in a few days. And then it was on the summer with you guys. So already the impact has been well, what am I going to do instead? And you just have to I've been trying to think of well, what am I good at? What else can I do? Because I can't go back to teaching. It's not an option. I can't go get a retail job. It's not an option. So I'm trying to, I'm actually mixing, but just doing more of that, and like, you know, reaching out to you, Matt, and being like, hey, I've got some shows on a hard drive, perhaps we'll do a single. That was the first, like, okay, I can definitely do something. I've gone off on a massive tangent. I can't even remember what the thing was, how I've adjusted. It's been difficult, and, you know, as a sensitive person, as you put it, it's also mentally been quite a challenge as well. I miss the smelly tour bus more than I've ever missed a smelly metal container in my life.
Yeah.
But just doing what I can, and like that's, I think, on feeding into what you were saying as well. Like, I'm not under any illusions about my career so far. Has been very, very short, and I'm mixing bands that are a lot bigger than what should be, given the time that I've actually been touring at front of house. So yeah, I guess I just honestly think it feeds back to the, like, don't be a dick thing. Because if I couldn't read a room and I wasn't that fun to hang around with, then nobody would want to take me out, you know. Like, if think about, like, if you hired the best sound guy alive, and, you know, after 4 days he was just absolutely unbearable to be around, regardless of whether he's the best sound guy or not, you would be looking for a replacement, someone who could gel better with the crew, someone who was maybe a little bit more sensitive if that was his issue. Just it's essentially the flip is like going from being around all of my friends 24 hours a day to, like, being with my housemates who are two of my best friends. But the difference is, like, there's no traveling, there's no noise, we're not going out for coffee every morning, or, you know, hinting at Ronnie to make the coffee every morning, Matt. It's tough, and, like, I'm not the only one who has it tough. I'm one of many, you know.
Yeah. Well, I think, and that was what I was going to say. I mean, there's a lot of people who are going through those exact things. There is no more hustle bustle. There's no more noise. The streets are quiet. You can't really go anywhere. You can't gather with people that you haven't seen in a while, at least not in person. And there is a big difference between these Skype and Zoom calls, you know, and actually being with people in person. There are other senses and sensory sort of parts of us that get stimulated when we're together in a room. Yep. It feels different. There's definitely a palpable energy in that sense, but it seems like out of a lot of my friends, though, you've been doing really well in figuring out what you can do. Like, again, hitting us up and being like, hey, I have some live tracks. You know, maybe we should do a live track or a live video, which we got together and we released a live music video where Randy got to do his side, and that was sick. It was your idea. So, I mean, I guess the productivity and being proactive is something that I'd like to talk about further, because a lot of our listeners are struggling. I was going to say floundering, but I think that's a very negative word. I think they're struggling, but they want to do better. They want to figure out ways. And this is something that isn't just in, like, our group. Like, my wife, dude, I mean, she has a job right now, but her job is in sponsorships for live events. And she can't sell any sponsorships, so she can only do so much work during the day. And she has been trying to figure out what else can she do with her time, whether that be just simply creatively or to make money, but also creatively, because you really can't go and do anything outwardly. So that's been a thing. But I think, and I want to get Justin's comment, but, like, you definitely seem like you jumped in pretty quickly and got moving with getting things done, whether it be mixing or writing your own music or finding live tracks for us or the other bands you're working with. So hold your response for 1 second. Justin, go ahead.
Yeah, I just quickly wanted to say that Carly and I, my fiance, and she made me aware of this the other night, and I can't stop thinking about it, that we really just flipped the script on the virus and all the time we have and all these things. Instead of looking at it negatively, we've just been having this conversation of, what are the gifts of the virus? The podcast, this would not be happening right now. Matt and I had rekindled the relationship of us training together, and then it slowly petered out only because we realized the severity of the virus. We couldn't get together anymore and train in my garage. And through those kind of conversations of training, we decided, this is like the perfect time to bring back this, format of us having conversations remote, even though we can't be together. And even from when we started the podcast a few years back to now, the gift of having platforms like this and being able to record in this manner, and everyone can be remote and we can still connect. And I've just been really grateful for all the gifts. I know that I have a bit more time with my fiance who has no time and now has a little bit more free time. So we've been able to do gardening, working out together, watching movies together, just and then reconnecting and rekindling old relationships with old friends, reaching out to more people. So it's crazy, but I realize the gift of the virus is that most of this wouldn't be happening if it weren't for the virus. So I'm curious, and to Matt's point as well, you quickly shifting gears from where you were, which would have been go, 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 to now, whoa, I can't do anything that I'm used to doing, going on the road, being away with all your friends. What are the gifts now, gifts that now you're giving, right? Of course, reaching out to people, reaching out to Matt and saying, hey, let's release a live track. But what are the other things that maybe have come from this that you go, oh, I'm sitting back, I actually have all this time now to reflect. There are some nuggets, some gifts that are coming out of the virus.
Well, I finished my album, which is a huge gift because we had just a couple of little things. I don't know, Joe, if you can relate to this, like the tiny little things, but the things that take the most amount of like time and concentration. Yeah. I had so many of those tiny little things to do and no time to do them in, because it was like get home from America and I'm home for like less than a week. And it's like, okay, well, hang on, I want to just spend a day in my own bed with no one around. And then I want to play on the Xbox and I want to go and see my mum and all of that sort of stuff. And then before I know it, I'm like, oh, well, I've got to be in the airport tomorrow. So I didn't get any of that done. So that's finished. I have been reading more now. I tend to find I'm reluctant to start books because I'm like, well, I'm not going to be able to have the time to really focus on this when I'm on the road. So I'm not going to start it to then have to restart it again and then restart again and then restart again. There's a lot of little things. I've been communicating with friends from home more. We've been doing the house party thing. Because that was one thing that I was completely neglecting for the past couple of years, completely on me, was like I was away and I fell into that trap of, Matt, I don't know if you've ever experienced this or any of you really, but like you start traveling more, so people start getting in touch less. And then the immediate reaction is like, well, if they're not texting me, I'm not going to text them. And then before you know it, you haven't seen anyone in like 5 months. And then you're just like, shit, I should probably just be a grown up and get in touch with someone when I'm home. But yeah, gifts of the virus. Well, that was the initial thought, was like, okay, I am not going to just sit on my sofa for an indefinite period of time. I have to do something. And thankfully, a list of things just presented itself where, like, before, if it had been between the Car Bomb tour and the Stray shows, I probably wouldn't have even considered doing the live single, because it would have been like, well, I don't feel like I have the appropriate amount of time to just only concentrate on this thing. So yeah, there's a couple of things. What about everybody else?
Joe, I want to jump in. Actually, Joe, yeah, I'm curious, like, what you've been up to, and then I want to kind of synthesize a few of the things that have been said and share my perspective.
What have I been up to? This week has been... I've been been speaking to other people, and they've said they've felt something similar. It's like this week was the first week where I've kind of felt just like I'm so done with this now. There's been like periods of time where I'm just like bored out of my head, and it's stressing me out because I'm so bored. But I know there's things I could do, but I just don't want to. And I've been like, I was chatting to my neighbor yesterday, and he was saying like the exact same thing. And I've had like 4, 5, 6 different people sort of saying like this week has been really tough. And I don't know why that is. If it's sort of, someone suggested that maybe it was because like there was hope that the government were going to start easing up loads, and that hasn't happened, which in my opinion is a good thing, because I think we should be doing this cautiously. There's a part of me that does worry about everything going back too quickly. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just like it's like there's a day in January which is called like Black Monday or something, where it's like statistically the most depressing day of the year.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like we're in that time period, like after the lockdown occurring, is it like the same ratio of time that this is like the Black Week? I don't know. But
go ahead.
Yeah.
No, keep going.
But just mostly doing the same stuff, work, trying to be creative, spending time with my wife, who's now back at work, which is interesting, in its own ways. But yeah, pretty much the same stuff. I've
found that this week there's some sense of that kind of vibe, but I guess I've been practicing some new things to get to basically satisfy the negative feelings with something better that I can feel better about. I've just felt like I want to be a little bit more bold with this situation. Still being cautious, still being safe, still doing all the things that we need to do to protect one another. But I sort of hit this like hump where it was like, you know what? Like, if I want to go out and run an errand, I'm going to go fucking run an errand. And if I need to go do something and it involves being around people, then I'm going to go do it. And I'm going to have enough confidence in myself and trust in myself that I will do everything I need to protect myself. But I'm not going to be trapped in this physical space that I can't get out of. And I'm also not going to be trapped in this mental cycle of worrying about everything I touch and worrying about every little thing that I'm doing. And I think I was doing it sort of subconsciously for about a week now, but I had a conversation with my mom yesterday, and my sister was just really getting on her about the potential of interacting with other people. I mean, even like how my stepdad would go out to the deli and have curbside delivery. My sister is sort of in a place that I think I was at many, many weeks ago, where it was like every little exposure is certain death. You know, she was like, you're letting them like put a bag of food in the back of your car. You're letting them touch your car handle. And it's like, yeah, we can wipe it down. Like, there's a solution for almost all of these social interactions. There is a solution to make sure that you're protected. Like, wear a mask so that, and if other people are wearing masks, you're upping that you know, the odds of being safe. I don't know. I guess I've been sort of feeling fed up, but I think I've been doing more about it, which has made me feel better. And it's just small things. It's like I was wearing gloves when I was picking up packages. Now I'm not wearing gloves when I'm picking up packages, and I'm opening them up and I'm bringing the stuff inside the packages inside, and then I wash my hands rather than having to wear gloves. Like, I know it seems like a little step, but it's a big step, because mentally I've let go of some of that fear, and I still, and I feel better after washing my hands the same way I would have if I had worn gloves, but also tortured myself through the process. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but I'm definitely letting up in that way a little bit. and I feel better about it because I feel like that is how we're all going to have to eventually adapt to this situation, because it's likely it is going to go on for a long time in some semblance of this scenario. I mean, it's not going to go away tomorrow. So we have to decide if we're going to just continue to live in this extreme state of caution and fear, or if we're going to live in a controlled, confident state of caution and remove the fear from it. Remove the erratic behavior that some people are showing. And the last thing I'll say about it is it's been interesting. When I first started going out, like if I would go to, the supermarket or Target, and I would see the workers there being just like going about their days, like they didn't care. At first I was like, God, these people, like, they're crazy. They're so crazy. And now I find myself sort of in that mental state where it's like, all right, again, like, I'll just protect myself and I'll be fine. And I'll be cautious of others around me and I'll be fine. But if I had a job like that where I would go to a retail space and work, I'd be going now. I may have been a little bit fearful to go before, but at this point, I'd go because it's healthy. I think it's healthy to do it. I think mentally and physically it's healthy to just get out and start challenging yourself safely. So that's what I wanted to say in regards to what you were talking about, Joe. Jordan, what were you going to say?
So a few things. First, I think this is a nice time to give that reminder of let's be really, really easy and kind to and on ourselves. Because from what you just shared, Matt, I relate to it. I'm sure all of us relate to it. Just the decision of I'm not going to put on gloves to touch something. Like, there is a ton of fucking energy swirling through your mind and body to come to that decision. So even though it seems like such a trivial thing, and on the surface level, it is a trivial thing. Do I put on gloves or do I not? Like, there's so much that went into that decision. And even in the times that you're still grabbing something that was delivered, you're still probably kind of wrestling with that decision in some way. So in all of these moments, like, let's just remember, like, this shit is fucking hard. It's very, very novel for all of us. We've never really had to deal with something like this before. And look, it's easy to judge other people. It's so easy. Like, yo, that motherfucker out there without the mask and without the gloves. Look, of course, we want to have some level of safety and caution. But just as easy as it is to judge the other, it's almost easier to judge ourselves. Often we don't realize it. So I think to just be kind and easy on ourselves as we continue to struggle with all this decision making, I think it's just a really healthy reminder to go slow and with ourselves and to take care of ourselves and not beat ourselves up, because we will vacillate. There's some times where we're going to be way more heightened in our fear, in our anxiety, and other times we're going to feel really emboldened and say, you know what, it's not worth it, and I'm going to go take that walk and be closer to people than if I were just to stay at home. So to kind of circle back a bit, Matt, you were talking about, a lot of our listeners and many of us who may be struggling with the ways in which we occupy our time. For a lot of listeners, especially those who may look at some of us as people who are high achievers and also produce things but share them more publicly, like this podcast, they may think that in order to occupy their time in a productive way means something maybe far grander than maybe what it needs to be. Ronnie mentioned reading books. I relate to Ronnie in that if I'm going to read a book, like, I want to be in the book. Like, I want to be chipping away at it every day, because when you read a book, you kind of live in it. We don't watch movies in chunks, but books we kind of have to read in chunks because of the time it takes. So when I'm reading a book, I want to be like in it from day to day. I've had a bunch of books about Walt Disney the man and Walt Disney the company that have been sitting in a closet for nearly 15 years. In like 2005, Justin and I put out an instrumental record, and the artwork was heavily inspired by the mid-century Disney films. So I got a bunch of books. Never read them. I finally grabbed what I think is like the definitive Walt Disney biography that came out first maybe in the 70s. I've been reading that every day, and it has been one of the most productive things that I have done in the past few weeks during this quarantine. I am so inspired by his story. I have learned so much from his mindset. I have learned so much about entrepreneurship and business through the growth of his company. I have learned so much about American and world culture as the book is traveling through the influenza 100 years ago, and then both world wars. So in all these ways, me reading one book has been so valuable to me, and because of that, one of the most productive things that I have done.
I can relate to that too. For sure. You know, it's weird. I'm hearing some
a doubling effect. Yeah.
How about now? I think it's good now.
Good for me.
Yeah, there we go. I've found that too. Some of the books that I've read during this time have been some of the most productive parts of my days, because it's giving me things to think about. It's giving me things to, like, one, it's giving me a place to put all the energy that, if unused, would probably swirl into negative thoughts, bad thoughts, anxious thoughts, whatever. But it's been inspiring to start thinking about new things to do or try or do. And, you know, it's funny. So, Justin, one of the books that I'm reading has a focus on, there's a part of it that's about Laird Hamilton and his training methods.
Right.
And talks about some of his sauna work and some of the things that he's doing. And I've been thinking about, like, okay, I don't have a pool, right? But how can I sort of try the same ideas with the workouts that I'm doing? So one of the things that I've been doing is actually combining, like, really intense Laird Hamilton style out of pool workouts with nasal breathing. Right, which is really hard, and it's, in some ways, it's similar to being in a pool, because if you typically breathe out of your mouth, that's how you're used to getting your oxygen. Your nose probably isn't even opened up anywhere near as much as your throat and your mouth passages. So when you're working out and your heart rate's up and you're breathing heavy and you're, like, forcing yourself not to open your mouth and breathe through your nose, it's like being underwater. And I think that's part of that training. But anyway, I think you'd find that interesting, because what I'm trying to do two things. One, I'm trying to train harder. I'm trying to create more focus in the training by not having it just be on the weights and the technique, which, you know, I feel good about. Now it's on, can I control my breath, and can I develop CO2 tolerance, and can I create more oxygen being optimized in my blood that way through that whole process and that whole practice. And it's really fucking hard. But it's a good challenge, and now it makes me think about, okay, well, when I do have access to a pool, whose pool is it going to be, and can I bring weights so I can go under the water and try this shit? Yeah, anyway, yes, definitely. So go ahead.
Yeah, quickly, I just wanted to say a couple of things to that. I think the macro perspective on that is maybe spending less time worrying about the things that we can't do, and you know, worrying about what's outside and the virus and picking up the package and, oh my God, because I can wash my hands. Yes, it lives on a surface, but I'm not going to touch it and then, like, you know, touch everything on myself before I go wash my hands, right? So spending more time thinking about these alternative methods of things that you can do that sound one, highly rewarding, and also are highly inspiring. That's a great place for everyone to start putting their energy. You know, Jordan and I think he recently said something about we talked about, like, the web pages that you go to and the things that you spend your time kind of researching. If that's the stuff that gets you going, you might as well triple down on that right now and really start thinking of what else can you do with those things. If you love them so much, you might as well start diving into them a bit more, right? And that might be, to Ronnie's point, connecting with all of his friends and now helping them facilitate all this new material from old material. You know, just finding new ways to repurpose it in this time where we have the time. Matt, to your point real quick, So Laird Hamilton does this move for everyone who needs to know this, and I won't go too far on a tangent on this one. He'll take big weights and he'll go to the bottom of the pool and he'll try to like walk, as far as he can. So you got to hold your breath, and you got to hold the weights, and you've got to move. So you're going to really be oxygen depleted, right? My head went to, you take a nice resistance band, a nice thick one, and you grab your wife or your partner, or Ronnie, you grab your roommates, whomever, you put it around the person's waist, so now they hold you. You take a bunch of big deep breaths and then exhale really hard, like stuff we've been talking about. So now you don't have as much oxygen in you. Hold your breath. Grab some weights. If you don't have weights, you go grab a suitcase, we've talked about this, or a 20-pound bag of rice, and you hold that and you just lean forward like you're in the water, and you try to go as hard as you can, right? And part of that mimics this idea of when you're in the water, there's so much resistance that now we can create this fun way. And of course, this is a very healthy way to be thinking, because my head is very far from the virus right now. I'm just trying to be present with you guys, and I'm now thinking of all these alternative methods of training, which sound fucking awesome. I'm inspired.
Right.
And I wanted to make a really quick quip on how I've been feeling about this stuff. It's been different for me because I've been working. And with that comes all this other added stress that makes me really shift my focus from thinking about all the worries of the virus. And I just have to think to myself, in only trying to judge myself and being kind to myself, I have to do the best I can with what I got. And that's all I can do. I put gloves on, I Purell my gloves. I take gloves off after I touch things, and I know I can't just keep washing them. I wash my hands a bunch of times. I look at my hands and I've got some skin breakdown, and I'm like, it's fine. I'm going to then use lotion, right? Like today, I went and visited Jordan and dropped off some groceries. I put a mask on, and then I put a surgical mask over that. It's just, I'm doing everything I can to protect myself so that when I'm in the world or working with patients or whoever else, coworkers and everyone else in between, I'm thinking about doing due diligence for myself, because that is also doing due diligence for them. But I've got to take care of myself first before I can even think about anyone else. So it's been interesting. Because the perspective from a lot of people who haven't been going out, I think the more time they stay in, the scarier it gets to leave. And I think to Matt's point, or to Jordan's point about taking a walk, I think it's baby steps. Everyone needs to, and I'm not advocating that everyone just go, jump outside and go run by people and, go out and run errands and do all these things and forget the virus and forget protecting ourselves. But, I think at some point, to Matt's point, we all have to start making, small efforts towards getting back to something normal, because again, this can't go on forever. In Maryland, where Matt, Jordan, and I are, we were supposed to start opening things. Yesterday was supposed to be phase 1, and there was a lot of uncertainty of, should we do that? Are we cutting the parachute a little too early before we hit the ground? Maybe before we were thinking, if we cut it now, we're 1,000 feet from the ground, everyone's done for. Maybe we're only 50 feet from the ground, but it still could be disastrous if we let it go. And I think people are still struggling with that. But the more that we start personally, as much as we can tolerate, within reason, with still being cautious, taking those baby steps forward, I think the easier the transition will be when you decide, okay, the floodgates are open, I'm allowed to go, but maybe I'm still too apprehensive or too anxious to even go. And so I think it's important, I know my perspective is different because I leave the house a couple of days a week and I go to work. And it's sometimes hard for me to even fathom what would it be if that wasn't the case. And so, of course, I have all the empathy for everyone around me, for my, my favorite people and others. But, I think because I've been going out, it makes it easier for me. So if I can, be of service to others to explain that, like, hey, I've been going out and thank goodness, like, I'm okay. I feel good. And so the more that I do, and, I ride my bike after work and I walk around the neighborhood and I see other people and I still keep my distance. But these are things we can do. And I think getting outside, we've talked about this before, taking a walk, getting some exercise. Ronnie, you said you went for a run, keep doing it, and you keep your distance from people. And I think it's really important right now. Wave and you throw peace signs and do all these things to other people so you have more human interaction with strangers. I don't want that to become a foreign thing either. So
yeah, people are afraid of each other. It's crazy.
And you shouldn't be. I think we have to have empathy for others, and we also have to have understanding that everyone is doing the best they can with what they got. And if they're not, shame on them. but we're not here to judge those people because we have no idea, right? So
Yeah.
we take care of ourselves, and we hope that others are doing the same.
It's been such a bummer to like when I am. So this morning, Natalie and I went out to this little farm creamery to grab some milk and some eggs and some stuff, and there's some people there, and everybody's wearing masks.
Did you milk the cow?
No, I wish I did, but
okay, just checking.
I'm wearing my mask, but I'm smiling at everybody, like, to show interaction, and I'm realizing they fucking can't even see it. Like, so
no, they can. Your cheeks, you know, they go when it goes, it's there.
I'm
Keep
hoping
doing
it is, and that's the thing. It's like I want people to know that I'm not afraid of them, and that I'm also like it's like disarming them. It's like I call it like the white guy smile. You know, like when we're like make that face. It's like the same kind of thing. It's like this smile that now I have to show with my eyes when I'm in public, you know, to make people feel disarmed. And to your point, it's like, if I can't show that, like, then I put my sunglasses on, they really can't see it. Then it's, hey, how you know, hey, how are you? Or like, have a good day, or whatever it is, you know. And I'm trying to be extra nice to people that are out and about and that are working, and just like, again, making people feel comfortable with their decision to go out. And I don't even know if that's a active decision, like, for that reason, but now that you're talking about it, these baby steps, this practice of getting out there more, practice of, you know, getting back to some sense of normalcy and developing new routines that allow you to have some sense of normalcy. I think part of that too is supporting each other in that, you know, in those instances and in those actions, you know.
Definitely. Maybe wave to people, something they can actually see, or you know, even just
I've been doing
lots of peace signs, shakas. I mean, the whole nine. All of it conveys a message that hopefully people understand of like, we're in this together. You know, I've got love for you. I hope you've got love for me. I'm looking out for you. You're looking out for me. Like, it's all good. And I hope that these new thoughts and feelings and actions, they don't fade quickly. You know, because a lot of things fade quickly. Like, we get back to normal, and we start taking for granted all the shit before, and we go, you know, oh, I'm back in my own head with my own struggles, with my own shit. It's not the virus anymore. It's all the stuff I used to deal with and think about. But now I'm out and I'm heightened, thinking about myself and others, and I'm trying to be nicer, right? You're being nicer to people. You're smiling more.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not a gift of the virus, I don't know what it is.
So I just, before we, because I have some questions still for Ronnie, and I want you to say whatever you were going to say, Ronnie, but one thing really quick. Justin, I want to bring this up to you. I mean, with your work, you are in the medical field. The work you're going to is definitely more risky, for lack of a better word, than me going out to a farm that's outside and barely interacting with people. So I guess my question is, like, when you go to work, I imagine your senses are heightened probably more. Then maybe, well, this is the question, like, when you're not going to work, but when you're going to the supermarket, or you're going to go run an errand to see Jordan, or walking around, whatever it is, does that feel like so far removed from the heightened sense that you might have when you go to work? You know what I mean? Because, again, most people feel that heightened sense now just going out to the supermarket or something like that. You're feeling it for real. So what is it like to go to the places that we're all going to that are not as risky?
I mean, to be completely honest, I feel the same as when I left the house today, and I ran into a grocery store and asked Jordan, "Hey man, like, I'm going here. What do you need?" You know, and then I went over and hung out with him for a bit. It's the same thing, because my disposition is just happy, you know, and I try to make sure that everyone else around me is feeling good. Oftentimes I ask, you know, hey, you know, like, what time are we having the party today? You know, to like the nurses or whomever, you know, or the cleaning service, you know, hey, 1 to 10, how happy, how we feeling today? You know, they tell me they're at a 7. I'm like, well, how do we get to an 8? You know, I think I just remove myself from the equation. I walk in, I mean, I wear like my lab coat kind of deal, and I put gloves on when necessary, and I carry Purell in my pocket so I can hand sanitize wherever I am, and I wash my hands multiple times a day, and I disinfect my office. I mean, I'm doing and I also wipe down in my little area, there's 2 other doors, and I wipe down the handles for everyone. And after that, I go, look, I'm doing the best I can with what I got. And honestly, I feel really good. You know, I thought about, you know, what Jordan was saying. about some of these soft skills making you the baddest motherfucker. I mean, I was hearing him in my head as I was driving to work on Monday saying like, dude, I feel like the baddest motherfucker. Like I'm walking into, on the front lines, but I feel like that's my duty right now is to just do the best I can with what I got for the people that I'm trying to serve. And honestly, that makes me kind of forget about myself. And I think that's to the point of it's easy, I think, for me to go out and go to the local nursery and pick up flowers and different plants and stuff and bushes that we're working on outside. And there were so many people out because the weather has been so beautiful the last couple of days here. I mean, I think you put all that together. I feel the same going there, honestly, as I do doing other things. And whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but I'm happy with that disposition. And I think because from the beginning, at first I developed a little sense of heightened anxiety and fear, and then the more I did it, the easier it got. And that's with most things in life. I'm sure for Ronnie, if you said you're maybe newer to this game of what you're currently doing, if it's going out on tour with all these different people and making all these new friends and mixing all these new bands and making sure they get what they want out of it. I'm sure at first it produces a ton of anxiety, but then you start to feel like, okay, I'm getting the approval from all of my contemporaries, so maybe I know what I'm doing, and the anxiety starts to just go down, and you just start to do. Is that right?
Yeah, totally right. The first bus tour that I did was with Plini and Animals, and I remember being so nervous and like, I mean, I didn't know the Animals guys, and if we're going to be honest, I wasn't really fussed about them. I hadn't heard much of their music, but Plini I was already friends with. I had already worked with them, and so we had a nice catch up. They're Australian, so I hadn't seen them in a little while. But I was so nervous going into that situation. But like, the more you do it, the easier it gets, and it becomes like a second nature. Yeah. Well, I mean, when I said I was new, I mean, just like in the grand scheme of things, I've been touring full time since 2016 now. With 2 years of part-time touring before that, but yeah, it's like anything. There's an adjustment period, and I think it's the same with this situation. The adjustment period of, well, I've got to work from home now, but I have noticed, on the more positive end of the spectrum, like I have been talking to strangers a lot more when I go to the supermarket, even just idle chit chat while we're waiting to go in. There's like a 2 meter queue to get into the store. And I also last week met my neighbors for the first time, and I've lived in this house for 4 years. So that was nice. They're cool. And they were like, oh, you're in a band. So my other housemate is in a band as well. They're like, oh, we've noticed you're taking a lot of equipment in and out and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, yeah. And small talk. We were like talking for about half an hour, and it was, when I came back in and sat down, I was like, I can't believe I've lived here for 4 years and I have not spoken to these people who live like 10 feet away, like we share walls. And it's just crazy that it took something like this for that to happen. And, I do hope that other people who found similar things, like waving at people, smiling at people, like, being more mindful of the space, the people that you share your space with. I hope it is something that does stick around when there's a vaccine that hopefully everybody gets, and we'll keep that sort of togetherness a bit more than we had before, like going into the pandemic, going into the lockdown. There was a huge disconnect. Like I would go to the store and I just headphones in, look down, pick what I want, go home. But now it's like I find myself like going a little bit slower and just embracing everything and being safe. But at the same time, if someone's like, hello, I'm like, hey, I'm not like fumbling going, oh, sorry, what was that? It's cool. It's like,
more present.
I guess you guys we're all, just everybody's more present. I feel certainly more present. But then also, to go even further back in the conversation, to just like feeling normal, even if you have a day where it's like, well, I'm kind of depressed, I don't want to go out. The one thing that I've been doing is just getting dressed and putting shoes on, because it just gives us just a sense of feeling like a normal human that has been or is going to do a normal human thing. And yeah, just having shoes on, I don't know if that's weird, but having shoes on changes my mood completely.
I was putting on shoes this morning. I got dressed, put on shoes, and my mother-in-law was like, "You going somewhere?" I was like, "No, I just feel better wearing shoes, even if it's like around the house. It's just I feel a lot better. I feel better." And we've talked about that a good bit. I'm glad you brought that up, because just getting dressed for the day, whether it's a weekend or whether it's a normal day or every day, it's just, don't lay around in the stuff that you sleep in. That in and of itself can make you feel depressed and bummed out, you know? Take a shower, get dressed, get cleaned up.
Yep.
And even if you're not going to go anywhere crazy, you know, just still, yeah, it's a massive difference. It really is. And I wanted to bring up one thing too, like talk about like new things. You know, I've been touring for a long time, like well before you even. Yeah. But it's funny, like every tour, especially when you tour with other bands that have, you know, good reputations and you know they've done it for a while. It's like, all right, how are our two clans gonna get, you know, how are we gonna get along together, right? And when we the first tour we did with Plini, you know, I was sort of like, oh man, like here come these heathens pulling up in a van outside the backline company, screaming at the top of their lungs. I was like, oh man, this is gonna be nuts. And I think I even said to you, I was like, there's no way, like, you're not gonna get me to do these. I'm not gonna scream. Yeah. I'm not gonna take part in all these, you know, little childish games. And I didn't get it at first because I was like, you know, it goes back to that thing of like, oh, well, I'm insecure. I can't let myself be this goofy and be this nuts. But you, in particular, were the one that sort of, you know, took my hand basically and was like, come on, let's go over here. Let's go over to their bus. Just stand here. Like, just
Who, Joe?
Plenty to bed.
What's that?
Joe, you said you.
Oh,
you know, and you pointed. It looked like you pointed to Joe on my end.
We're all in different spots, but
yeah. For the people, Ronnie took your hand.
Ronnie took my hand. Was like, "Come on, let's go." And it didn't even really happen fully until the second tour that we did together. Because the first tour there was just a lot going on personally within the camps. But on that second tour, Ronnie's like, "Come on, let's go." And I remember just like hopping up on Plini's bandwagon and just observing. And it was just so much fun. Like, I laughed my ass off and I had a good time. And like all the fears I had of being like, you know, vulnerable but in a goofy way went away. And the next thing you know, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. I'm getting involved with the games. I'm like egging them on to do stuff. And I'm seeing a different side of Ronnie as well, because Periphery and Plini, we get along really great, but we're also very different in terms of like just the vibe and the energy in both of our respective homes on tour. It's just a different thing. It's like it's a different sort of level of I don't know. I mean, you probably can describe this better because you've lived with both of us, but it's just different. Yeah. Not in a bad way. Totally cool on either side, but different. But getting to also see Ronnie let loose in a way that I had never seen him do with Periphery helped me to understand him more as a person, and it disarmed me a good bit to be able to open up to that side as well. Periphery tends to be like professional, you know, like we I don't know, you tell me, I'm curious, like the difference that you notice, because it is a difference.
It's definitely a quieter environment and everybody goes to bed early, which is good because I enjoy it. I enjoy that side. But like, I don't even know how to describe this. It's very hard to describe the Plini bus to anybody, because if you ever like were to meet Plini or anybody in Plini's band, you know, particularly like Chris or Simon the first time you meet them, and definitely Jake. Wow, Jake was the quietest person I had ever met when I first met him. Then to go on, like for anyone who's ever met them, they know that they're all very, like, they're reasonably quiet, quite softly spoken, all the rest of it. Then you close the bus door and everybody is screaming, and we're like picking Plini up and pushing him into his bed and then stealing his curtain and pulling him out of his bed and making him chug
making
many
him go
beers.
I mean, the piss thing was the greatest thing.
And making him piss. Like, and he doesn't even need to piss, but we're screaming at him to have a piss, and it's honestly just like a series of in-jokes that have built up over 5 years this year that I've been working for Plini, and they'll all just come out at once in this really loud, like, and it's so much fun, and we're all laughing, and like even the don't let go thing,
yeah,
they know how to just take jokes to the extreme in the funniest way. And I remember saying to Jake, going at like Euro Tour, because we were sharing a bus, I was like, I hope you know we're screamers. And he was like, nope, not happening. There'll be no screaming in our bus. And then even dragged Mira in on it, and Mira's like, there's no screaming in our bus. And
Mira was our bus driver, by the way, guys. So
Mira, the first female nightliner driver in the world, I think, at least ferrying bands around.
She's amazing.
She's very cool. She's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember Jake especially was like, no, that's not how we live. And then by the end of like the second tour, he's also screaming and doing Don't Let Go, and like just walking out on stage for no reason,
doing the flexing
with his arms in the air, and like, it's really funny how infectious the Plini camp are, because we infiltrate everyone, and we did it with animals as leaders too. Javier came out as Mestis, and he was messaging the Plini chat when an animals tour kicked off. I wasn't on that one, but he was like, I've just started screaming at people, and there's no one to scream back, and they don't think it's very funny. They just don't get it. So it's really funny. I think the next Periphery run without Plini will be interesting, because it's going to be very quiet.
No, but I was going to say the opposite. I think it's it's like a childlike sense of fun that you get to have with those guys, and once you do it,
childish.
But that's the thing. It's all lighthearted and it's funny. Yeah. Once you do it, it doesn't go away, and I actually think that the next Periphery run is going to encompass a very similar sort of sense of levity, because of how much fun it was to do that, with those guys. And this was the point I wanted to get to with this whole thing, was that like I almost felt bad, and this is going to might sound weird, but I felt bad subjecting you to being on our bus, especially in the beginning, knowing how much fun you were having with a group of guys that were just totally able to let go and have no inhibitions about anything that was going on. And I did. I felt bad. Like when you would go with them on some of the days off, I'd be relieved. Not because I didn't want to hang out with you. I'd love to hang out with you. But I felt like, man, I get it. Ronnie has experienced this. This is where I would want to be too, for sure. And I think that's part of the reason why we started to let our guards down. So I bring that up because I think also, as much as you do live by a code, so to speak, and are also very, very good at reading the room, I think you saw something in us, and maybe it wasn't even intentional, but you saw that it was a little bit more serious. And rather than being like, okay, well, they're over here and they're over here, I think you and some of the other guys in the Plini camp really tried to just bring us into it, right? And I'm grateful for that, because it opened up just a whole new level of interaction that we have never had before, and it translated to our shows. I think we felt tighter as people, as friends, as a group on stage. And it was as simple as in our huddles before the show, we're screaming at each other. And the one thing I love about the Plini camp is when they do their huddle, they do their thing, but before they do their count, they all take a deep breath in, and they look at each other in the eye. It's this thing. They like they have a connection right before they go on stage. And that was really special to adopt that and to like be like, you know what, we can do that too. And we've always had our chant before we go on stage, but the connection, I think, is what is more important than the chant itself, which we were sort of lost on for many years. We just would do it because it was like, oh, let's do our chant, instead of, wait a minute, let's make sure we start this connection right now before we go on stage, get on the same page, everybody's stoked, let's just go have fun. So I don't know, I wanted to bring that up because I think you maybe didn't realize, or maybe you did and didn't tell any of us, but I think you brought out a lot more fun to the road with us that we weren't exposed to before. And what I also learned too for these other guys is like, you're a bit of an instigator over there too, which is totally opposite of how I pitched you in the beginning. But again, it's a safe environment for that. So it's cool. But what I wanted to ask you about, and I'm sure the other guys have a couple questions too, before we kind of start winding down, is there a routine now? Getting away from the touring stuff, now that we're home, back in this situation, have you developed a daily routine that you try to stick to? Like, do you have a time that you wake up every day? Are you pretty flexible with that? Do you have certain days you work out, certain days you don't? How disciplined are you being with yourself and with your day-to-day sort of routine?
Pretty disciplined at first, because I was like, well, I'm not going to let this take me. I was like doing little home workouts and making sure I was up like before 9 every day. I would have a coffee, probably watch the news, which I absorb via YouTube, so I see more American news than I do British news somehow, because your president is a very, very funny man, whether he's trying to be or not. He's a very, very hilarious man. But whatever, like that aside. And then, by 11 or so, I'm in here grinding, either mixing something or writing something or doing a cover, which I'm currently doing, which Get Good Drums and Neural DSP will be very happy about. And then, have a little break, have some lunch, socialize with my housemates, and then back to it, and then do some gaming, talk to some friends, do some video calls, something like that. And then, of course, you have days where it's like, it's a little bit too much, and you're just like, oh, I can't believe this is all happening. But doing something like putting my shoes on will turn that around. And then,
how do you, I mean, that's one great example, but are there other methods that you've utilized or developed to pull yourself out of that funk? In the words of our previous guest, Donnie, to wake yourself up. Like, how do you, when you're lost in that negativity or feeling like how what the fuck is happening? What do you do to get yourself out of it?
Well, some days I can't get out of it, and that's a very human thing, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. If anyone else is in that situation, everybody has those days where you just want to keep your sweatpants on and not talk to anyone. That's fine. But at some point, I will reach out to someone. I'll text someone. I was texting you quite a lot, Matt, and, reach out to people like Misha and other friends that I have at home. Just like, instigating the conversation. How are you? How's your mental health? Because as much as it's like nothing to be ashamed of, I personally don't want to be the guy that's like, I'm depressed, help. Like, I feel like I want to get to that naturally, but generally speaking, reaching out to people definitely helps. Even if it's just not, you don't broach the subject straight away, it's a regular conversation, because it will lead into it and you will end up talking to somebody and feeling better because of that. But yeah,
I think, even when you and I were talking, even before this pandemic, I think there's always been a sense of sort of helpfulness back and forth at different times
Absolutely.
and different things. But yeah, I remember when you did reach out to me, it was like, how are you doing? Like how I didn't get the sense at all, and maybe it wasn't the case, but I didn't get the sense that you were feeling like you needed to kind of get out of a funk, because I felt like our conversation was very much, you were asking how I was doing, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
And that is the message, right? Like by helping other people, you can truly help yourself.
Well, yeah, definitely, because, even if the conversation didn't end up coming back to me, it was nice. It was a good feeling to be like, my bro he's doing well, and he's been productive, and, he's been settling on a house and all of those other things. And that's something that can pick you up, is the wellness of your friends. So like, even if, if you feel like shit some days and you don't want to talk about it, something that can make you feel better is just hearing something cool about one of your friends who has been productive or is feeling good, because the energy is totally transferable, 100% transferable.
Yeah. I think that's why we have been doing this podcast too. I mean, so much more, there was a time when maybe it seemed more of like a thing that we all sort of were doing during our week. And it was, I don't know, I guess for me personally, I wasn't anywhere near as excited to have the interaction, and I wasn't anywhere near as focused on the conversations before. Now I really look forward to these chats and being present, because every single time I walk away feeling good. Every single time I walk away, like we end up texting each other afterwards, like, hey, love you guys. Like, that was a great talk. I feel so pumped up. I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go do that. Like, it's so cool that you can just have that by reaching out to a friend and being like, hey man, how you doing? Hope you're well. And that's, it's great that you're doing that. Anyway, I don't want to keep hogging it, but yeah, Jordan, what's up?
Yeah, look, I have noticed the difference in you, Matt, and it's so lovely. And it goes back to what you were saying about like the band huddle right before a show. You guys can like do something, but how much are you actually in it? How much are you feeling it? What's the quality of the human connection, of the spirit that's actually present in the doing of the things? Often it's referred to the difference between content and process. So in many relationships, I mean, it's just the same dynamic that just fucking goes on and on and on if there's never any type of awareness and growth. The content is different because the argument may be about 100 different things, but the process, what's going on under the hood, underneath, the actual connection, that's typically the same, and it just keeps playing out over and over. I feel the same way toward the end of the first run of this project. It felt more like a weekly thing to do to kind of check off. And now I think with this pandemic, there's such an urgency about the preciousness of friendship, the preciousness of communication, etc., that it's really allowed us to be more connected to what we're actually doing. It feels really good to do it with all of us. Also, with what you were sharing about, Ronnie helping you open up a bit more. I relate to Justin in a lot of those same ways. And I think it's so important that we're constantly auditing who are we spending time with, right? We often hear that we're the average of like the 5 people we spend the most time with. Other people serve as models in our lives. Other people, through their energy, through their actions, they provide space for us to try similar things. And I think it's really cool that you have identified Ronnie as someone that is valuable in maybe allowing you to feel more comfortable trying new things on, trying new ways of being in the world. And then you can decide, I like it, I don't like it, and then go from there. But it seems like Ronnie at least had your, had your best intentions in mind as far as him, and maybe this is a thing that you would enjoy. That's what I love about Justin. Justin is one of the most social creatures I've ever met. And going back to what Ronnie was saying with, hey, I just met these neighbors for the first time. And we've literally been coexisting physically for years side by side. I had the luxury of being the first tenant in an apartment building 3.5 years ago. It was similar to like moving into university for the first time. Everyone is there and like new, so people are more social. I am more social in general. As years go on and more people move out and you get new tenants, like people don't make eye contact anymore. You're in an elevator and like no one says shit. For me, it takes more energy to keep my mouth shut and to ignore the person than it is to just like say, "What's up? How you doing?" I'm going to like literally acknowledge your existence because we're stuck in this container for the next 30 seconds together.
Yeah.
So hopefully this pandemic is helping us to notice the other. To me, it's weird that between a wall, there's two other human beings that are living their lives a few feet from me, and I don't know who the fuck they are. You know, and look, reading the room, every time I've said what's up, they're happy to like, you know, acknowledge my presence and then move on. So I'm not going to like press them and try to socialize. Yeah. But to me, it's like, yo, we're all in this together. And at least for me, I have the stomach to interact with a relative stranger. And I've found that it makes me feel good. A hard pivot, but I have a very pointed question for both Joe and Ronnie as the audio experts in this conversation.
All right.
What's your favorite sound?
Ooh.
Oh,
Make Joe go first.
yeah.
Ooh.
Is that it? Is that the sound?
Ooh.
That wasn't it. I don't know.
What note was that?
Maybe silence.
Nice.
Because there's so much noise all the time. Whether this has got deep. Whether that's physical noise with, I don't know, planes or roads, or mental noise of internal monologues, or doubts and worries and anxieties. So just sometimes sometimes I really appreciate silence.
I can relate to that.
I feel like
Yeah.
we don't get it a lot at the moment.
When I first started dating Natalie, we would, you know, she'd get in the car and we'd drive, and I don't always, probably more often than not, I just don't put on music. Maybe I'll like open the sunroof a little bit, or I'll put a window down, and I just like the white noise. And I don't want to hijack the answer to this question, but something popped in my mind right away when you said this, and I don't think this is like it's been forever, but this is just something that a sound that I enjoy, at least in this snapshot of my life. It is the pouring of coffee beans into my grinder.
Yes.
That sound is great because it just triggers so many good feelings. It's like fresh beans, new cup, new day, new smell, new sounds, like new tastes, like a chance to make a really good pour over. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
that's a good fucking sound.
At the minute, for me, it's the sound of the Delta press. So for anyone who's never heard of a Delta press, that's a DELTER. It's like an AeroPress, but it's minimal contact brew. So
There's a lot of people who don't even know what an AeroPress is, so you need to go back and you need to explain what a press is in general, like in relation to coffee.
Beans first. Start with the beginning, like the whole. Just walk us through your whole morning process of making a cup of coffee.
Oh wow! So scales out, container on the scales, zero it, 19 grams of coffee.
This is chemistry.
Well, actually,
a little chemistry.
So my scale doesn't do 20; it does 19 or 21. So I pour 19 until I see 21 flashing in every now and then, and I know I've got 20 grams. Get them in the grinder. I've got a hand grinder. That's a great sound, actually. The sound of a hand grinder, grinding coffee. Grind it up, kettle on. Switch it off before it boils, so you don't scald the grounds. Wet the filter through on the Delta press. Grounds in the Delta press, filter on. Tip it up directly on top of your cup, and then pour water in the top. It's got a like a scale on the side. So for 20 grams, if you do the 16:1 ratio, you want 320 grams of water. I weigh it in grams. And I figured out where that is on the Delta press, so I don't need the scale anymore at this point. And then, slow plunge. Very slow plunge.
What is that noise, though? What does
So
that
good.
sound like? Like, I
It's
can't
like
even remember it, because I feel like the bus generator was so loud, or at least the noise on the
absolutely.
bus was so loud, I can't remember the sound of that press.
It's like, it's hard to describe. I will send you a voice note of how it sounds.
It does.
But it's like a light hiss, just a very light hiss. But it triggers in my head of like, okay, the coffee's coming. I know the coffee's coming, so I get that like dopamine response from it. But yeah, a press is a portable coffee maker, and the AeroPress is the way it's generally brewed is quite a long brew. So a lot of people do 1.5 minutes of a full submersion without plunging the water out. But with the Delta press, it's like doing a pour over. So it hits the grounds, it filters through the grounds, and it's gone, which is a minimal contact brew. So the Delta press, the water is separate from the coffee. And as you plunge, the water goes through the coffee like it would in a pour over and straight into your cup. So you get these delicious pour over, like subtle flavors, and well, depending on your coffee.
Next tour, I'm bringing my pour over rig. We're not.
Okay.
I mean, you can bring the Delta press, but
I'll bring the Delta press.
we're doing pour overs pretty much as often as possible.
Yeah.
A previous guest.
Don't worry, I'll make them.
Dude, I'm getting good. So we could both make. We could alternate days.
That was always that. Hey, Ronnie. Have you had a coffee today?
You making coffee?
It's like, all right. I guess I'm making a couple of cups of coffee then. And then the whole bus go, are you making coffee? Oh, you make coffee? I was like, fuck.
He's
So
good
I
at
spent
making
the next
coffee.
20 minutes stood in the kitchen, just, God damn it.
Yes, but you're good at it.
And
so
good coffee.
treating others well. It's good.
Treating others well. Yeah. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, a prior guest of ours, Jeff Blake, he's been on a couple of times. He became a strong minimalist when he decided to uproot his life from Baltimore and move to Hawaii. But one of the things he couldn't let go was his hand grinder. And he said there was something about the process of actually hand grinding the beans. Now, I get it, because I went over to his house one time. We had coffee together. It's an experience, right? Yeah. Jordan and I, we were both fortunate enough that we both ended up with like an actual just machine, with 18 different settings, and you just, pick from coarse to fine, and whatever you want it, you hit the button and you're done. But actually sitting there and going through, I know Matt's been really into his coffee process. I feel like I cheat because like I have an automatic machine. But to Matt's point of the beans, which stimulates all the senses, one thing that I love is I pour the beans into the hopper in the back, so that beans are set for a while, and I like run my hands across it to make sure it's level. And
I
that's like it's a whole different sensation.
Yeah.
That's a nice.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, I can relate to that.
We should all, I think everyone should make a video and post it in the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/chocolate croissants, of all of us making our coffee in the morning and just showing that's like one part of the thing in the morning that, routine that gets us going.
Yeah.
That morning cup
I'm so
of
down.
coffee.
It's a great idea. Ronnie, you should, if you can, film, just on your phone, film a morning coffee process. I'll do it.
Yeah.
We can all do it. Joe, do you make...
I just got my cold brew rig.
Okay, that
So
works.
I'm into that right now.
That works. Yeah.
I was talking about this yesterday, actually. I want to try and make a cold brew.
It's good.
Because I feel like I'm pretty good at the hot brews now, so the cold brew seems like the next logical step. But also, see, favorite sounds is fine, but favorite smells, that's another. Because I feel like I take sound for granted because I'm just around it all the time. So it's smells that get me. So that, like, when you just take the lid off the grinder and you've got the fresh grounds in the cup, just that initial burst of coffee, that there is not a smell on the planet that beats that for me.
That's pretty good. It's pretty, yeah.
Right now I'm living in Baltimore County, about 20 miles from the city where my apartment is. And so I've always been used to walking 2 blocks to the cafe. and getting something fresh. And that was my way to like just be out in the world since I live alone.
Where do you go? What do you go to?
Charmington's, right next to Auto Bar.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I love it there, and I love the people there and the whole vibe. I miss it like a lot, right now. So where I am now, and I can of course, post a video in the group, but it's this process. It's called a Keurig machine.
Okay.
Yeah, and it fucking sucks.
So you got to
wait. But I did get you pods today, so
I appreciate the.
Maybe it'll get better.
Yo, your video just came back. Was Justin's video frozen for all you guys for the past minutes?
It's for the past.
No, he was good for
20
me.
minutes or so. Yeah.
Mine's still frozen. So.
Oh my god! And everyone's good on my end.
Yeah, you were good for me on our video, so we're good. There's a drummer friend named Eric Improda who's got a series of videos of him throwing the pods into the Keurig, like
nice.
Okay, like nailing it every time. So that's how you can make the Keurig more fun: is practice it like basketball or like just getting it right through the hoop.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, have any of you guys? So Justin or Joe, have you guys done your own pour overs ever? Have you played around with that? I know Ronnie has. So have you done iced pour overs? So I've been doing that.
I've had all of your iced pour overs.
Yeah, that wasn't good. That was.
But the pour over becomes like a whole separate process of like having to buy more things, and I think there's something about in my kitchen trying to not have, we have this like amazing DeLonghi coffee machine that you can put a carafe on the side. It'll make a cappuccino. It'll make an espresso shot or a double espresso. It'll do an Americano. It'll do all these things.
Sure.
And we have a cold brew mechanism where it's got the filter in the middle and you can put the beans in and let them steep 16, 20 hours. But it just becomes like another thing that you're like, all right, am I really going to sit here? Which now I have a little bit more, time is a little more finite in the morning for me. I don't have as much. I can create more if I want to get up earlier.
Yeah.
But with all the things that I'm also trying to do in the morning, with having a good, healthy morning routine to get myself awake before I have to go to have a whole nother process of like blooming the coffee. And then letting it drop look, I hit the button and I love that I can compost or just dump the grinds that are now sitting there. And it's not a thing like when I had an espresso and all that plastic, that single-use plastic, I always felt like, God, I'm like doing double espresso like twice a day, like a quad shot kind of thing. And it's like, then I'm just chucking all this stuff and I'm always buying them. Now it's like being the cup. This is like, now our conversation has gone totally just to coffee, but
no, but that's
fucking great. And, neither here nor there, but yeah, we have other mechanisms we don't even use. Like we have the percolator, like the American style, making a drip coffee, and we have a bean grinder and it just sits upstairs. Yeah. Eventually I'll probably bring it to my office when it feels safe to make your own coffee.
It's interesting though.
Process at work.
I think you would really like the pour over.
I'll just go to your house and do it.
Well, but this is the thing. To your point,
I'll go to Ronnie's house and do it.
It's such a small rig.
You're welcome.
It's such a small rig that if once you get down the system, it's really easy and it doesn't take too much time. But I think knowing you, I think you would really enjoy the small tweaks that you can do to really make it better. Or whatever and this is the thing. Every bean you use is going to require different tweaks. So it never gets boring. It is always fun to find the right combination. And what I was going to say was, Ronnie, I'll send you a video link from the Vigilante Coffee guys where they teach how to do a Japanese ice pour over, which all that really means is, so you take your catcher, you put 100 grams of ice in the catcher, and then I do a 22 gram 15-to-1 ratio. So I got the 100 grams of ice in the catcher, 22 grams of coffee on top, and then you pour in 230 grams of water because the ice melts, so it ends up being the full 15-to-1 ratio. But then after that's done, you aerate it, and then you pour it over ice. And it's a totally different experience with the same beans. So like in the morning, I have my hot pour over, and it's like today, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go make myself an ice pour over because it's just a nice afternoon treat. And it's like the beans that I like are floral and aromatic, and you know, it's just it's good stuff. But
we buy this thing at the grocery store called cold brew. You know, and it comes in a container. and granted, when we would make cold brew, I feel like you use half the freaking bag because it's like a 2-to-1 ratio. It's like whatever you would use for a normal cup of coffee, you use so much more. And I feel like, where the fuck did the whole bag go? I'm out of coffee already. I got to run to the store.
But see, that's why I like this.
It's a right. So, but like, you know, I can have a hot cup in the morning. I can have a cold right here. The fridge is literally like three steps from me.
Hold on,
and I'm ready to go.
But I think
I want to hear Jordan's commentary about all the coffee.
Well, wait, before you do, Jordan, one thing.
No, real quick.
There's an important thing to note, which is there's a big difference between cold brew and an iced pour over, and I think the biggest difference,
I don't disagree with that,
is freshness. Because you're getting the reason you have a pour over, the reason you make a pour over with fresh beans is to get the freshest, best, most optimal taste out of the bean in an instant, right? You can't get that
like
with
the Keurig too.
You can't but the beans have been sitting there already ground for like months potentially in a warehouse. This is like beans that were roasted a day ago. Then you're grinding them up. Then you're blooming them and getting all of the different gases out of them and the smell and the taste. And then you could pour it over ice and really enjoy it. So just let's clarify. There's a difference in freshness amongst many other things that we just can't put a value on. I mean, you can, the cost of the beans and the rig, but that sense of smell and taste, bar none.
Here's why I'm laughing. Because I'm omitting the words like coffee and beans, and I'm just hearing all of my stoner friends talk about like their $800 bottles with multiple chambers and the different ways of like percolating and like the right way to like light it and all that. It's wonderful. I love coffee. I also love weed. I don't go as deep in either of those, but the coffee I'm far more interested in. I think it would be fun to learn some of those processes and like have some of that equipment.
Every time I go to Nolly's house and he's got like a new piece of equipment, I always leave being like, shit, I need to get one of them. And the last
like a mad scientist.
Right. Yeah, talk about Nolly. I mean, talk about someone who values the nuances of coffee. There's a guy. Right? But
it's probably also he probably values the nuances in almost everything.
He does.
Right?
Yeah,
so like when you start talking about this, we start going back to like, you know, I feel like I'm 16 again and I'm in chemistry class and you've got that thing that's got like chamber, and this is to Jordan's point, this is like the massive bong thing, right? Of like, I got this thing and a thing, you know, and 18 feet later, I try to take a hit and the thing just breaks, right? But what are those coffee contraptions? I will go on eBay and I will try my best to make offers on, you know, once a year when I get a kick, that I feel like I should have this 4-foot tall glass thing that takes 38 hours or whatever it is to have the thing go from up here to like all the way down. I get one little drop and I'm feeling like I'm liquid gold.
I want it.
But maybe, Matt, that's what you need in your new house.
I want it. I've looked at that for the new house, actually. I've looked at, and not to cut you off, Ronnie, but I've looked at a big, like, 3-foot rig that I can do. But here's the thing.
Yamas? Are they Yamas?
I don't know. I don't know anything about it. That's the thing. I'm not going to buy it until I actually know what it is, how it works, what the point is. But we've
never been more hyped on this podcast.
I was about to say, no one has ever been this animated before.
Coffee is a polarizing thing, and it's a very exciting topic. But
I have like espresso in my veins.
But honestly, when I got into coffee, and this is a newer thing to where I'm really getting into my own pours. Like on the tour, I wasn't into it as much, anywhere near as much as I was now. It was a gradual thing. But once I decided, like, all right, you know what? This is something I want to get into. I didn't go and buy stuff first. Yeah. I actually went to Vigilante Coffee, and I took a class on how to make pour overs and how to and understanding the equipment and understanding this. And again, it's one class, so I have way more to learn. But my point is, and maybe this translates into anything, which is like, before you go invest money in something, go learn about it first and see if it's something that you want to do, because there's a good chance I could have gone and be like, this is just too much. I just want to have somebody make me coffee or whatever. I'm going to buy a Keurig and fuck it. But I ended up really getting into it, and now it's something that I, on a daily basis, we've talked about this. It is akin to putting on your shoes and putting on your clothes. It is an accomplishment. It is a challenge that you can give yourself on a daily basis, and that is really how I'm looking at it. One sec, Joe. Especially during this time, I'm looking for daily wins that make me feel good, that I can actually, no pun intended, taste or feel. And coffee, I think why I'm so passionate about it right now is because it is on a daily basis maybe the most consistent thing that I'm challenging myself with around the same time every day. And every day brings a new challenge, and I don't always succeed. When I get a new type of bean and I, play around with it, sometimes it's not a 15-to-1 ratio, right? And we don't need to get into the nuances of that, but like, it doesn't taste as right, so I gotta up it. I gotta go to 18. I gotta figure out the coarseness of the bean, of the grind. I have to figure out the temperature of the water, how long to wait, how long the whole pour should be. There's just so many different tweaks to it, but I love the challenge of it. And what's cool about this method when you're using fresh beans is, even if it's not a great cup, it's still gonna be better than most of the shit you can drink out there. But the key is to how can you make it as good as possible. And I look at that on a much bigger level on a daily basis as a challenge that I'm going to focus on, take seriously. You have to be very present when you're pouring. And I've noticed, of course, the moments that I look away or look at my phone or somebody says something, I fuck up the pour. Inevitably. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned through this process that I'm really trying to practice every single day. So I don't want to take it get too serious with this response, but it might be something that people can relate to directly, or I'm sure there's other practices that, if done every day, could have the same level of focus and presence. Joe, what were you going to say?
I was just going to ask, would you say that coffee is very grounding?
Yes, it is.
Holy shit, he's funny.
Joe's really funny. Yes.
Do a quick five for us, Joe.
It is.
Yeah.
Joe, when you do the edit for this episode, can you have like a crowd cheering in the background after that comment?
Yeah.
Sure.
That was great.
Use the Apple Loops kids laughing.
Yeah.
I
know the exact one you're on about.
You know exactly which one I'm on about.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, guys.
Dude, just a quick question. Has in once we went on the coffee rant, did anyone think about the virus?
No, but that's the point.
Not one.
Right. So just bring up the gift of this connection, right? Something that probably wouldn't have been going on right now, and us sitting here laughing. I've actually been sharing a show with Jordan that happens every Monday. These two guys in the MMA world, and I swear this is I've been itching for this on this podcast. It's every time I watch an episode with them, they laugh so hard that they're always in tears. I'll share a clip with the four of you after this. But this has been very healthy and very cathartic, very therapeutic. This has been, this is the conversation that we have after the podcast, and we'll just have it on the podcast. This is a fucking great place to be. And it's a great time to have with all of you.
And who here doesn't want a coffee right now? I fucking want a coffee.
I want a coffee.
I don't.
It's too late,
Joe,
for me.
it's like 10 o'clock at night for Joe, right?
Almost.
And Ronnie.
Right, and Ronnie, right?
It's 20.
late.
We've been recording for an hour and 45 minutes.
Right.
Ish.
So yeah. So there you go. But
I can't drink a coffee in the evening. I'll be up all night.
Yeah, don't do that.
I'm just gonna do it.
You should do it, dude. And if you have ice right now, try the ice pour over. The other night, the refrigerator at Natalie's parents' house, I was making an ice pour over. I went in to grab the ice, and I noticed that the ice cubes looked watery. I was like, uh-oh, what's that? And then I opened up the refrigerator and noticed that it was like 50 degrees and going up. So the refrigerator shit the bed. So luckily they have another one in their garage, like a refrigerator with a freezer in there. But it's definitely way smaller, and we have lots of shit that like was in both the freezer and the refrigerator, and the freezer and the refrigerator in the garage. So we had to whip out all these coolers and get ice, and like we have just, it's insane in the garage right now. But it's making me appreciate, again, like finding the good in these bad things. It's like making me appreciate ice. I'm so grateful to have a freezer that's always running, that's producing ice all the time, so that I can use it however I want to use it, you know? And it's cool to find be grateful, find gratitude in these small corners that we don't always expect to stumble into, you know? So, well, I think this is probably a good place to take it out. Everybody wants coffee, and it's getting late for our British friends here. But is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up or dive into before we part? Joe, yes.
I'm stealing this from another podcast called All Work No Play, but I thought it'd be cool if we all recommend something for the listeners to enjoy or watch or listen to in the coming week, which you have enjoyed recently.
I have one that I'm still in the midst of, and I'm going to probably steal this from Justin. But the most recent, as of yesterday, the day before, Joe Rogan podcast episode with Rhonda Patrick.
I need to watch that.
It's fantastic. Yeah. Very educational, very current. And funny enough, I was watching it yesterday when I was in my little sauna joint as they're talking about the benefits of sauna use and then how great a cold shower is after the sauna. But I think that's my recommendation is if anybody listening wants to learn more about ways to protect themselves, build their immune systems, practice better health, do more things right now, given the state of the world. There probably are. There's not many experts out there as worth listening to than Rhonda Patrick. I think she's pretty amazing. Justin, would you concur?
I would concur.
Okay, just making sure. I mean, you are a health professional. I just want to make sure I'm not.
Justin, that is the most succinct you have ever been.
Look, I can buy into it all I want. I can like I can watch it and be like, yeah. But this is one of the things that you and I would talk about if we were working out or training together. I'd be like, hey, did you watch that episode with Joe Rogan and Rhonda Patrick? And we would have probably an hour-long conversation about what is true, what's
right,
wavy. So I'm just curious, do you feel...
I haven't started yet because it is 3 hours long, but
it is. I
mean, the first 2 or 3 or 4 times she was on Joe Rogan, that was the catalyst, and that was the impetus that sent me back to school to become a dietitian. So yeah, I mean, I think of her as like one of 2 North Stars of health and wellness and nutrition. Her and Dr. Peter Attia are kind of like my go-tos. And I think right now, both of them are crushing it. I mean, especially Peter Attia, he's put together a whole, just rock star team of people that are just trying to dissect all of the information that's out there and trying to distill it down to something that is of value and of service for everyone, so we can try to understand what's going on and what are the best practices we can put into play. But yeah, Rhonda Patrick is I could go on and on about it, how cool Dr. Rhonda Patrick is and how we should all be listening to all the advice that she's putting out there. But I'll go real quick. Joe, I'm going to give just an action that I think people should go do. To your point of grounding, something I've been thinking about a lot is grounding, of taking my shoes off and going walking in the grass and just kicking around. So we've been doing a lot of yard work. I've been walking barefoot. I also realized how my feet just are not seasoned. I stepped on a thorn yesterday. I thought I was going to die. So, so it was bad. I dragged my toe through it. I was like, oh, I'm just not cut out for this yet. Right. But I think it's important right now, getting outside, healthy vitamin D. You'll hear that, I'm sure, a lot in the Rhonda Patrick podcast. Getting outside and feeling good and really connecting something to the earth. So putting my feet in the grass has been really rewarding. So I'll challenge everyone to go do some grounding.
Zordon?
I watched this when it came out maybe less than a year ago on PBS in the States, but I think it's on Netflix. Dave Chappelle, the special when he received the Mark Twain Prize. I think
that was awesome.
Kennedy Center. Yeah, it's a lovely edit of the ceremony, but also his work in the community in DC where he grew up, and also I think the night before he did a really intimate stand-up special with invited guests. It seemed beyond just being one of my favorite comedians, the way he defends the art form of comedy in his remarks that night was really touching and empowering for me. He demonstrated why he earned the privilege of that award. So I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I watched it a few weeks back. It was great.
Yep.
It was great. Did you watch, Jordan, did you watch that Tom Segura special yet? Ball Hog?
Not yet, but I didn't realize Aziz Ansari had one from last year. I watched that last night, and I really enjoyed that, probably more than I enjoyed any other stand-up specials I've seen him do. I think he handled his public controversy really well and was a good example of getting ahead of one's narrative and taking ownership. And I saw a lot of Chappelle in his mannerisms too that I didn't pick up in previous specials. So it was an hour spent well.
If you have time, if you don't have plans tonight, I can't encourage enough for all you guys also to watch the Tom Segura special on Netflix. It's his newest one called Ball Hog. It's phenomenal. Okay. Phenomenal.
Cool. What's the one before that?
I've seen it too. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's also
that one. That's probably because a lot of times I watch these comedy specials and like I'm 3 minutes in and I look over at Carly and I'm just like, I don't know, I haven't laughed once, like I can't, Yeah. And let's try 10 more minutes and then it's like, it just keeps falling flat. Chappelle, the ones that Chappelle has out on Netflix, I mean, those are definitely the exception. But the one before, and I'm blanking on what it is, but the Tom Segura one, that had me like falling out of my chair. I mean, that was just like, that's too,
is it disgraceful?
Disgraceful. Disgraceful crushed me. So that's another way to break up what's going on right now, the monotony of maybe thinking about negative thoughts. Yeah, go watch that and get lost in that one.
Justin, I think if you liked Disgraceful, Ball Hog picks up right where that left off. Those two in particular are like of equal great quality laughs, and even there's some overlaps there too of like certain topics. So if you haven't seen that one either, you should definitely watch it. It's like I laughed the whole time. So it was great. Ronnie?
I just started the Netflix series Trial by Media. I don't know if you guys have that in the States.
It's on there. I saw the trailer for it. I haven't dug in yet, but
it's very, very interesting. It's not very funny, but not everything in life is funny, and it kind of makes you go, whoa. It's basically focused on how the media can shift a court case without ever being directly involved, just based on their influence on the people who are involved, and how they'll like play up to the cameras and completely like swings a case in a direction that you would never imagine it to. I think I'm on episode 4. The episodes are like an hour long, and they're all based in America, so you'll probably remember most of them. But it's directed by George Clooney and somebody else.
So is it a documentary?
Yes. Yeah.
And each episode is a different case.
Correct. Yeah.
Understood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
It looks really
good.
it looks really intriguing for sure. When I watched the trailer for it, I added it to my watch list.
Nice.
It looks scary. Like it's scary. Like how the media can sway the court of public opinion whatever direction they want it to go, and that seems to be what it's about. But again, I haven't seen it, so I don't want to say too much. But yeah, it looks great.
Yeah.
How about you, Joe?
I shared this in the group yesterday, facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. I have to be careful when I say that now because I'm also used to saying /group/GGD forum. And it rolls off the tongue easier. But yeah, the other one. An artist called Aurora, who's a 24-year-old Norwegian lady.
Yeah.
And I was saying it's the first time I've ever felt like loved and cared for by music. And it's had like a really strong impact on me. And it's been a really big shift in my perception of music because all her music, I think I actually sent you a link, Matt, called Apple Tree, where she's like covered in blood.
Yeah, but it wasn't this particular song.
No, but
Right.
the artist in general.
Yeah.
But yeah, she just released a new song 2 days ago called Exist for Love. And it's about how at humanity's core, the only thing that we really exist for is to love each other. And I think that's a really important thing to bear in mind at the moment, because whilst we are all in it together, it's also a very polarizing time. And I think some people are being pushed away from one another for that. So I think it's good to just try and remember that, to go back to the beginning, don't be a dick. To each other or yourself.
Yeah. That's
Well done.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's a great place to take us out. That's a nice message to leave with. Jordan, you're on.
Yo, this was fun, guys. Good job. It's funny, every time we do this, Matt will kind of shoot us a message and like, yo, we're keeping this one to an hour, guys. And we're all like, yeah, like, that sounds good. And even with Donnie, we were like, you get 30 minutes. And that went like 75 minutes.
Yeah.
So I think it's a testament to the enjoyment of us doing this, which is what should be guiding our decision-making in the first place. So, yo, Ronnie, like, you're cool as shit, man. I like you, dude.
I love you all.
Yeah, man. Thanks for doing this with us.
Dude,
you know,
I will 100% be back.
hell yeah,
Great.
man. Yeah, you will be back.
This is a lot of fun.
Nice. We appreciate your generosity in your time and what you shared. Dude, don't be a dick. Like, that's the take home message. In my Beatwell groups where I share rhythm music making and all the things that go underneath the surface of that, I'm always talking about self-awareness, but ultimately it's in the service of group awareness. It seems like, Ronnie, you have a ton of group awareness, and that is one of the keys to your massive success and doing shit that you want to be doing in the world and making money doing it as well. So well done.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Amen.
Justin, Joe, Matt, you guys are wonderful. I believe it was Matt that titled the Skype chat Saturday Boys with a Z. It makes me feel the closest I've ever been to a classic 5-piece boy band of white guys. And Saturday Boys, that's what it is.
The Saturday Boys. Yeah.
Is it for the Saturdays for the boys?
Sure. Boys.
Yeah, make it IZ next time instead of YZ.
There, yep, okay. You got it.
We will be back next week. Of course, you've heard it like 14 times, almost as many times as you've heard the phrase "to your point" in this episode. Facebook.com/groups/chocolate croissants. We are there right now, and we welcome you to join us. Be kind to yourself. Don't be a dick. And until next time, bye-bye.